Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack here. It's Friday now, the 9th of August, 2024. A lot on the agenda for today's update. We've got this next system that we are watching. We're going to have to watch this one closely. Could have some direct impacts. Could be indirect impacts. Only too soon to know. You know how that goes. But first we need to talk about the remnants of Debbie, still causing a lot of problems, from flooding to tornadoes. There is a tornado watch now that I want to show you, and of course what it has done in the last several days with tremendous flooding from Florida all the way up into the southeast, now stretching up through the Appalachians and into the northeast United States, showing once again we've got to respect these systems more than just, hey, is it going to be a hurricane at landfall? They impact a lot of people even after they make landfall, and I have a few statistics that I want to show you as well. So we got a pretty solid update for you as we get into the weekend here at HurricaneTrack. All right, let's get started. First of all, a couple of tweets here from my friend Greg Diamond up there at Fox Weather. Catastrophic flooding ongoing right now in Westfield, Pennsylvania. Helicopter rescues are ongoing. Of course, you can tune into Fox Weather and see their coverage live. People are trapped on the roofs of their homes. Other structures have been lifted and carried downstream. That is frightening. It is life-threatening. And it is the remnants of a tropical storm that was once a hurricane. We have to understand this. We have to be ready and just look at weather in a different way, how it can impact us, not just these numbers. What category is it? How strong is the wind? You need to think of it in terms of impacts, and these impacts are substantial. Greg goes on to add to his tweet here, no surprise as to what is happening, because the river there rising to record levels. It broke that record level really fast. So a very quick rise here, and of course this is in a small town in Pennsylvania. Very, very tragic and frightening, and that is part of the remnants of a tropical system. That is why we put so much emphasis on keeping up with everything every single day when we have one of these things on the board. All right, another one here from Greg, and this is related to a tweet here from the National Weather Service Raleigh. The survey crew went out and they assessed that the damage that occurred, it's in Wilson County, is consistent with an EF3 tornado. So Greg points out here that this data between 1995 and last year, of the 1,783 tornadoes that came from tropical systems, only 5 were of F, back before we had the enhanced Fujita scale, EF3 strength or higher. So it's a very rare thing to see, and we can highlight that with Greg Diamond's tweet right here at the top. An EF3 tornado from a tropical cyclone is very rare, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I implore you to make sure you stay on top of this stuff. You got to be watching radar. You got to have the alerts that come through to you. Once they make landfall, hurricanes don't just stop. There is not some imaginary force and then everything is fine. They continue on, and we get these situations like this. I believe there was a fatality with yesterday's tornado, very dramatic and very sad for those people there in that community. So just highlighting the hazards here. We're not talking about storm surge and wind right now. This is tornadic threat and the rain threat, and it continues. And to that end, and I'm putting this update together here at 1:47 p.m. Eastern Time here on the 9th of August. And just a few minutes ago, as I was preparing everything, I saw that this showed up in my timeline, that there is a tornado watch for parts of New York, northeastern Pennsylvania, western Connecticut, and Massachusetts. So stay aware. You got to stay on top of this stuff that can happen very, very quickly. All right? So real quick, just a look at what's happening with the remnants of Debbie this afternoon. Getting caught up in a trough sitting up here, another upper-level low-pressure system, an upper-level trough that acts like a broom that'll kind of sweep everything out, and the pattern will finally get clear of Debbie, but not before the legacy here of this very deep fetch of moisture still coming up out of the Atlantic and maybe even the Gulf of Mexico. These tropical systems try to stay, I don't want to say alive because they're not living entities, but they try to feed themselves to keep that engine running, that heat engine, and all that energy now moving up into the northeast, where a lot of heavy rain and the threat of tornadoes, as I just showed you, will continue to be prevalent. A few other things to point out. This kind of looks like a tropical wave moving through parts of the Yucatan Channel. By the way, that's an old dead hurricane sitting out there. I believe that's the remnants of Carlotta, but you know what? We'll get to it. I haven't looked at the East Pack much lately because why? There hasn't been any threat to land, and everything's been out to sea for the most part, away from Mexico, which is great news. But it's interesting because you can still see there is a nice center there, almost looks like an eye inside that cumulus field of the skeleton of an old tropical system out there. Weak impulse now moving in towards the windward islands. Certainly could bring some showers and thunderstorms and some gusty winds with that, but nothing expected to develop. And if you look closely, you can see a little bit of that Saharan air influence, some dust in the atmosphere. Very hot and very humid, very muggy. Heard from our good friend Brent down in St. John today in the U.S. Virgin Islands that, man, you almost need a tropical system to come through just to bring the temperatures down. He said it is sweltering down there. So anybody else down in the Virgin Islands and elsewhere in the Caribbean, let me hear from you. Not verifying what Brent said, but kind of backing it up, right? It's just nasty down there for sure. All right, so looking at some of the stats here so far this hurricane season, a lot of the accumulated cyclone energy, these points, so to speak, that these hurricanes are scoring, most of that was, of course, from Beryl. The A score was 35. So think of this as a basketball roster, so to speak, and we've got 4 players on the court so far, and Beryl has been the high score leader thus far, followed by Debbie there with 4.6. So we had a time where we had no activity, and then we bumped it up so that the seasonal ace is now above 40, and we are well ahead of where we normally are at this time. And I think we're going to end up like way up here when all is said and done. And that's what we thought. That's what we thought months ago, looking at the overall background state of things. The climate models were really honing in on this months ago. And I try to say this in the realm of optimism. We have the advance warning, and that it is up to us with that advance warning. It's thundering outside. I don't know if you can hear it. Part of the tale of Debbie, even moving through Wilmington today. More rain. Anyway, that advance warning ahead of time lets us to take action and do something to be ready, whatever that means for you. And I try to emphasize that a lot as well. Everybody's different. You know, you might be very wealthy and you can do a lot. You might be a college student and you're really following this stuff, but you don't have much of a budget to do much. Wherever you are, you're in an apartment. Hey, look, my daughter, she's a grad student up at East Carolina University. Doesn't have a lot of money to go spending on mitigation and whatnot, but she can at least do something. Have some kind of a plan on what would happen if Greenville got flooded, if there was wind damage, if her car got damaged. Of course, her dad can help her by giving some advice in that situation, but everybody is different. So you have to do what works for you, but just hoping that everything will be okay, that is not a plan. So all of this stuff was seen in advance. We're seeing it start to play out, and we're getting into a much more active period coming up. And when I show you these next posts here, some of it's a little comical because, you know, we're humans. We have to laugh a little bit. Not everything has to be doom and gloom, but this is very serious stuff. So let's move forward. Let's take a look at this. Not a comical tweet. That's the one coming up from Matt there, the next tab over, right there. We'll get to it. A little meme action. But this is from Eric Webb. Just another annual reminder, he says, that the Atlantic tends to be the most active when the descending phase of the Madden-Julian Oscillation is entering the basin, like it will be in late August. And he says around the 25th-ish of this year. The impacts of lower deep layer wind shear, reduced Saharan air layer intrusions, enhanced low-level relative vorticity, that helps the spin from westerly wind anomalies, the cumulative column water vapor in the preceding active phase, and the lagged effect of stronger African easterly waves moving out into the Atlantic are all more important than local vertical motion anomalies, especially near the peak of hurricane season. So basically, to boil this down into layman's terms, Madden-Julian Oscillation comes along, makes everything very much favorable, and then you superimpose the timing, especially of this one, on top of the normal climatological shift to a more favorable period, and it should be all systems go for an outbreak of hurricanes as we end August and get into September. Now, that's at the other end of the month. This goes back to what I was saying. This is a gift from science and the weather community to us. So take action, do something, have a plan, get that generator looked at, go get your quick dams, whatever the case may be. Talk to your insurance company. Find out what you would need to do if you had to file a claim. You know, we have the power to be ready, and it's coming. Here's that tweet there. You guys like the Weather Nerds site? I certainly do. I've used it many times over the years. And Matt here, let's just mouse over and see who Matt is. Meteorologist. That's important, right? And a programmer behind the Weather Nerds site. And, of course, that's PhD, Dr. Matt, wouldn't that be Underlind, something like that? Creating a web platform for weather data visualization. And it's weathernerds.org. And there's old Ben Affleck there. Yep, it's only mid-August. Not even mid-August. I blew the punchline. It's not even mid-August yet. It's not quite there. And, yeah, Ben saying, right? Because this is serious. The ensembles are starting to pick up on something. And that, my friends, is where I based today's thumbnail on. It ends up, well, we'll take a look at it. There are some possibilities. But this is true. This is where it's, you know, where we thought we would be. So here's what it's looking like. This is the current National Hurricane Center update. And let's go over here real quick and settle this. Yeah, there's nothing out in the East Pac, so it's a dead system. That satellite imagery right there. Was that Carlotta? It's got to be. Doesn't matter. Let me just get on with it. East Pacific, we have another disturbance, 30% chance of development. We won't worry about it too much because it should stay off of Mexico and not develop into anything too significant. Our next system to watch, and this is going to be very interesting, is sitting out here in the deep tropics. I'll show it to you. We can see it in its forecast over the coming days to be somewhere in this orange area that I'm running over with the red. And it is up to 60% chance for development now. We expect that that will continue to go up. All the computer models are showing it, and we have to watch for the Northeast Caribbean, which that makes perfect sense because they are right in the middle of our development area. And then what happens after that will have everything to do with the strength of the subtropical ridge sitting out here. Then you've got your big high pressure area that sits over the U.S., and there's usually a trough sitting in here somewhere. And that moves back and forth. The ridges move back and forth. They ebb and flow. They expand and contract. And that determines where everything ends up. We don't know. We don't know where things are going to go at the end. So that's why we look at it during hurricane season here on a daily basis from my videos especially. So let's take a look. What are we starting with? Tropical wave. It's out there. That's the seedling. It's in the central Atlantic. It is producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. There is potential, as we just talked about, for this to develop into a depression early next week as it nears the Lesser Antilles, and that's our first clue. The Lesser Antilles, ladies and gentlemen, those are land masses. Those are islands. People live there. So yes, there could be some impacts. This is the first area that we need to watch for. And then after that, we will have to wait and see. So there's the seedling for it, and another really cool product. It's an ongoing project that produces this cool product from the University of Wisconsin and their Cooperative Institute for Meteorological Satellite Studies. And this is the total precipitable water product. This is an animation. Can you see the system? I'll let you take a second. It's right there. And that's got a lot of deep moisture with it. What else don't you see? Not a lot of this blue, which is a very dry atmosphere around it. The Saharan air layer gradually getting worked out of the system out there, worked out of the overall basin, and that's going to be less and less of a problem for tropical systems to have to deal with, as alluded to way back over here from Eric Webb's post, right? So everything's connected. This is why I show it to you. So there's our tropical wave. This is our entity that we need to watch. There is all the ridiculous amounts of moisture still coming up from Debbie, and it does, in fact, have somewhat of a tap into the Caribbean, feeding up through the southwest Atlantic, and that's why we're getting all that terrible flooding. And it is. Flooding's very incessant. I'm lucky to have never had to deal with it personally, but I've covered communities that have, and it's just awful. It wicks up into your carpet, your house, the walls, the floors, whatever, ruins automobiles, and it's kind of silent until it's like moving very quickly, of course. The water just rises on up. And you can see this. It's very deep moisture out there in the western Atlantic feeding into Debbie, and then we got that next system the remnants of Debbie anyway. That next system, that tropical wave, this tells me there's a lot of energy there. It's not a little small system. This has a lot to work with. So let's get over to the computer models, at least a couple of them, and let's see what starts to unfold over the next week to 10 days or so. First up, our good friend the GFS here. Global forecast system. This is the operational, and this is down at that 5,000 foot level that Mark likes so much, because this to me is the key. If you have a good framework from which to work from, then we see what everything else does from there, the mid and upper levels. So can you identify it here? There's the energy. Doesn't look like much, but it's there. That's the tropical wave. And let me point a few things out to you. This is really cool. Look at these wind barbs, how they turn this way and then this way. You can just follow them around. So yes, we do have cyclonic turning sitting out here. So that's pretty robust. It's there. And you can even see that on the animation from the precipitable water product right there. See, I almost called it project again. So yeah, there is spin out there. There is energy. So that is our piece of energy. That's our area of some concern. I think it's warranted to say that. So let's see what happens with it. Let's move it out into time. We are at 3 days right there. It starts to amplify a little bit more. We'll just kind of keep track of it here. There it is there. And then by day 4, right there, approaching and into the Northeast Caribbean Sea. And just this alone is enough to be concerned about. Windy, wet, showers, thunderstorms, disruptions to travel, i.e. impacts. Seriously, that's impacts. You see where I'm going with this? It's not all just about hurricanes. Finally, by day 5, moving south of, near the Mona Passage there, so south of the Greater Antilles, then it gets tangled up across Hispaniola. And before you start saying, because I know it's coming, oh, Hispaniola will destroy anything that comes across it. Well, that's generally true when you have a powerful, well-defined hurricane coming in. It runs into those mountains of Hispaniola, and whoosh, it's like a shredder. But when the system hasn't reached its maximum potential yet, it doesn't harm it as much. We saw Isaias 4 years ago kind of dance around that area. I remember it went on the northeast side of the Dominican Republic, and it looked like it even strengthened it. Sometimes the way the vorticity works, and this is getting into the mechanics of it, these islands can kind of help to kickstart things. So it's true that the island of Hispaniola can roll things up when they're coming through at peak intensity, but it's kind of like the Ferrari hasn't even been built yet. Good analogy. I think I'll stick with that one. Give myself some credit there. So it goes across the big island, and it is a big island of Hispaniola, as a weak system, and then it's, all systems go. Now we're out at about a week, and we will leave it there. Let's just back it up so it's properly at 168 hours in the central Bahamas, north of Cuba, southeast of the coast of Florida. Here's your big clue. It is not well developed. We don't look at that and go, wow, look at that. That's like a powerful hurricane in the model. That is a weak-looking system. It's not very high in the atmosphere. I can prove it to you. That's 5,000 feet. Here we go up to, whoops, wrong one. To the 500 millibar level, if I can just find the darn, there it is. So it's not well reflected the higher up into the atmosphere you go. In other words, it's just mainly down here at the surface. This is 850 millibars. I'm trying so hard here. And then this is the 500 millibar level up here, and it's not reflected very much up there, and then certainly not at 200 millibars, and then the surface of the ocean would be down here. So when they're really big in the atmosphere and they fill out the atmosphere, they feel the troughs and ridges better. And we do have some troughing over here. There's a weakness right there. The ridge isn't real stout around it, but our system is weak. So it wouldn't recurve and feel those weaknesses because there's not much to attract it into that trough. That's the simplest way that I can put it. So let's see what the Euro shows. Now this is a little bit earlier because we don't have the 12Z Euro in full run mode just yet. So this is from 0Z last night. So it's about 12 hours earlier, but still relevant. Same kind of area, 500 or 850 millibar, 5,000 feet in the atmosphere. There's our suspect area of energy. And let's move this out to a week. Watch what happens with the Euro. There's day 4, there's day 5, 6, and then finally day 7. The difference is clear. In the Euro, it is much stronger at day 7. So it's feeling this weakness that is sitting out here, partially because of this little impulse, kind of jackhammering on that ridge out there, and out it goes. And we can look at the 500 millibar anomaly, and you can see there is not a lot to keep this moving west. These are all low heights in the atmosphere, i.e. the ridge is not strong and connected all the way across or anything like that. And, very, very important, this is stronger, filling out the atmosphere more, and so of course it's going to be attracted into that weakness, and it would try to find its way on out. So that's a big, big difference there. The GFS is weaker and more to the southwest. The Euro is stronger and more to the northeast, and it would eventually feel the trough. But the other part of this, we're talking a week away. The weaker it stays, speaking of weeks, the more south it should probably go. And that's just generally how things work in the tropics. So we've got something to keep an eye on. Pretty confident that it will impact the Northeast Caribbean first. And then beyond that, you've done this enough times, you've watched it enough to know, Hurricane Center Site, me, Levi, whoever, right? All of us that track this stuff, you know the game. It's going to take a while to sort things out, but we have to pay attention. We got to be watching, all right? It is August. It is hurricane season. It's supposed to be very busy. This is not a surprise. So I talked about Quick Dams a little earlier. A great partner of ours, flood mitigation products for the modern era. I mean, the sandbags, come on. There's something definitely better. And to that end, I have a couple of cool things to tell you about. On Monday, I'm going to drop a video where I interviewed one of the folks up there at Quick Dams, Marilyn, and she's part of the company. And we just had a nice casual conversation talking about the products, talking about how they do what they do, kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of it rather than just an advertisement. Of course, as a company, they want you to buy their products, but it can definitely help you. And I just wanted to have a good casual talk with Marilyn about how it all works. And it's very fun, a very fun conversation, very fluid as well. Not scripted at all, you'll see. And I'm going to drop that, I'm going to prepare it. It'll be one of our Hurricane U episodes because I felt like it's important. You know, again, more than just a partner and a sponsor. I don't like that word sponsor because we really are partners in helping people to get ready for flooding, whether it's caused by natural disasters or a kid filling up the bathtub a little too much or the toilet overflowing or whatever. Great set of products for you, and I'll drop that on Monday. And I'm going to have Quick Dam send one of these leak kits right here to a friend of ours that we know through social media and who had to deal with Hurricane Laura down in Creole, Louisiana. Kimberly and her family were going to send a Quick Dams leak kit. And this is important because I felt from her story, I remember she told me for Laura they had to put towels in the windowsills and under the doors and stuff to try to keep that water out. And they still got water intrusion if you think about it. And she was telling me about this. Those towels, when they finally got back, were water-filled, they stunk, they were nasty, and they continue to put the water into the house. The towels don't really absorb anything and then hold that, and they evaporate into the air, and it makes the house all stinky and just nasty. Whereas Quick Dams, with their water dams, they look like a long sock, right? You might see these sometimes at grocery stores. They'll put them underneath freezers, and it absorbs moisture. But that's the key. They keep that moisture in there and don't let it wick back out. So we're going to send Kimberly one of these leak kits. And if she has to ever deal with another Laura situation, hopefully not for a long time, trying to make me disappear, there we go, she and her family will be ready for it, and she can document how they use them in the future. Because, hey, Southwest Louisiana, you know, hurricanes are kind of common down there, and we want to make sure she is prepared. So I'm going to send, and have Quick Dam send Kimberly one of those leak kits, all right? So look, with the weekend coming up, we'll watch this system. I'm not traveling anywhere. I'm staying put. Well, actually, I'm going up to the Outer Banks tomorrow to service one of the cameras that we have up in Rodanthe. We've got a few of them up there, and one of them has gone south on us. It's not working anymore. So I'm going to go up and take care of that tomorrow. So no update tomorrow, but I'll be back on Sunday. And then no traveling until whatever any of this shenanigans draws my attention. And then we will be ready for that. All right, so no update tomorrow, but I'll be back on Sunday. You guys have a good weekend ahead. As always, thanks for tuning in. Hope you learned something. That's the point. From all of us at HurricaneTrack, I'm Mark Sudduth. See you again on Sunday.